All right, so let's talk about Docker and Kubernetes. You hear these names everywhere, right? But what's the big deal? Well, today, we're going to cut through all the jargon and really explain what these two powerhouse technologies are all about. And trust me, understanding how they work together, it's not just a nice-to-have skill anymore. It's pretty much a must-have for anyone who's serious about a career in modern tech. So let's dive in.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You spend weeks, maybe months, coding this amazing application. It runs like a dream on your machine. But then, the moment you hand it off to someone else or try to put it on a server, poof, it just completely breaks. This isn't just you having bad luck. It's a super common, fundamental problem in software.
Yeah, this whole frustrating experience is so universal, it actually has its own name. The works on my machine problem. It's that classic developer headache, and it's really the perfect place to start our story today.
So, what's really going on here? Well, the problem almost always comes down to the environment. See, your app isn't just your code. It depends on this whole ecosystem of stuff to run. Specific versions of libraries, little configuration files, sometimes even the operating system itself. If even one of those tiny things is different on another computer, your whole app can just fall over. So how on earth do you solve that? You can't just mail your laptop to the data center, right? Well, the solution is a technology called Docker. And the best way to think about it is as the ultimate shipping company for your code. The magic behind Docker is this idea of the container. Just think of a real-world shipping container for a second. It doesn't matter what's inside, electronics, bananas, whatever. It can be handled the same way. A Docker container does the exact same thing for your code. It packages up your application and all its dependencies, every library, every file, the whole shebang, into one standard isolated box. This means it's going to behave the exact same way no matter where you run it.
Okay, now you might be thinking, wait, isn't this just like a virtual machine or a VM? And that's a great question, but they're actually very different. A VM has to pretend to be an entire computer with its own full operating system inside. That makes it really big and slow to start. Containers, on the other hand, are way smarter. They share the main operating system of the machine they're on, which makes them incredibly light, super fast, and way more efficient with resources.
And you know what? Getting started with Docker is surprisingly simple. It's really just a three-step dance. First, you write something called a Dockerfile. It's just a plain text file with instructions on how to build your environment. Second, you use that file to build an image. Think of the image as a read-only blueprint of your app. And finally, you run that image to create a container, which is the live running instance of your application. Simple as that.
So Docker is amazing. It brilliantly solves that works on my machine problem. But of course, its success created a brand new challenge. It's a good problem to have for sure, but still a problem. How do you manage all of these containers when you start using them at a massive scale?
Just think about it for a second. Running one container on your laptop, easy. But what about a huge application like Netflix or Spotify? They're running on thousands, maybe tens of thousands of containers all working together. How do you possibly coordinate all of that? What happens when one fails? How do you update them? Yeah, it would be a complete and total management nightmare, trying to manually keep track of everything. Scaling, failures, updates across thousands of containers would be absolutely impossible. You'd need some kind of super-powered conductor to lead this massive, chaotic orchestra. And that conductor has a name, Kubernetes. If Docker is the company making the standard shipping containers for your code, then Kubernetes is the global logistics system, the ports, the ships, the cranes that manages the entire fleet.
So what is Kubernetes, or K8s, as everyone calls it? At its heart, it's a container orchestrator, and its whole job, its entire mission in life, is to automate all the hard stuff. It automates deploying your apps, scaling them up or down, and managing them day to day. It's the brain of the whole operation.
You know, this quote right here says it all. This is the single most important thing to remember. Docker packages the application, and Kubernetes manages those packages. They're not competitors. They're two parts of a whole, and they work together perfectly. So what does Kubernetes actually do for you? Well, it's like having the world's best sysadmin working for you 24/7. Need to update your app with zero downtime? Kubernetes handles that with automated rollouts. What happens if a container crashes at 3 a.m.? Kubernetes just restarts it automatically. We call that self-healing. It also handles all the complicated stuff like networking, storage, and even securely managing passwords and other secrets. It's incredible.
Now, in the world of Kubernetes, there's one key piece of vocabulary you need to know. The smallest thing we work with isn't a single container, it's something called a pod. A pod is just a group of one or more containers that are bundled together really tightly. They share things like network and storage. It's the fundamental building block that Kubernetes manages.
Okay, so we've met our two main characters. We have Docker, the packager, and Kubernetes, the conductor. Now let's put it all together and see how they work in a typical workflow, taking your code all the way to the cloud. This is pretty much the modern journey your code takes. You start by writing your code, just like always. Then you use that Dockerfile we talked about to package it into an image. Next, and this is the Kubernetes part, you write a simple configuration file, usually in a format called YAML, where you just describe what you want. You say something like, "Hey Kubernetes, I want 3 copies of my app running at all times." And that's it. You hand that file to Kubernetes and it works tirelessly to make sure reality always matches what you asked for. So, okay, this is all really cool technology, but let's get to the big question. Why should you care? Why does any of this matter for your career? Well, because understanding this workflow is one of the fastest ways to level up in tech right now. It's simple. When a hiring manager or a recruiter sees Docker and Kubernetes on your resume, they don't just see a couple of buzzwords. They see someone who gets the entire modern software lifecycle. Someone who knows how to build an app, ship it reliably, and run it at scale. It basically screams, I am ready for the modern cloud. And we're not talking about some niche skill here. These are foundational for some of the highest paying, most in-demand jobs in the entire industry. Whether you want to be a DevOps engineer, a cloud engineer, a site reliability engineer, or even just a better software developer, this knowledge makes you an incredibly valuable candidate. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, from solving that frustrating "it works on my machine" problem, all the way to running massive, global-scale applications, it's pretty clear that Docker and Kubernetes really are the engines of the modern cloud. The only question left is, what are you going to build with them?